At 7:42 a.m. on August 17th, 1943, Technical Sergeant James McKenna crouched beneath the left wing of a P-38 Lightning at Doadorura airfield in New Guinea. The humid, tropical air clung to his skin, saturated with the smell of aviation fuel and hot metal. The morning sun glinted off the polished aluminum skin of the twin-engine fighter. Ahead of him, Lieutenant Robert Hayes, just 23, climbed into the cockpit, checking instruments with careful, practiced motions. 6 missions, 0 kills. The number pressed like a weight on his young shoulders. McKenna had seen men go up in these machines, confident, spirited, and come back broken. Or not at all. The Japanese had sent 18 Mitsubishi A6M0s to intercept the morning patrol. Hayes would be flying straight into them. McKenna had maintained P-38s for 8 months, studied every cable, pulley, and control surface. The P-38 was a marvel on paper. Twin engines, twin booms, fast in a straight line, a predator at high altitude. But it had one fatal flaw. It could not turn like a Zero. The Zero was lighter, more agile, able to execute a horizontal turn in half the time a P-38 required. That difference had already cost dozens of pilots their lives. The American doctrine was clear. Do not engage in turning fights with Zeros. Speed, altitude, hit and run tactics, dive and climb, do not linger. Hayes had tried this doctrine 5 times. Each mission had brought frustration, narrowly avoided disaster or death for his wingman. McKenna had watched too many good men, too many boys, climb into their P-38s with confidence, only to return as boxers or not at all. The official line blamed pilot error. Instructors insisted the men had not followed protocol. McKenna knew better. The problem was not the pilots, it was the control cables. The aileron control cables ran through the twin booms to the tail, looping through pulleys before reaching the wing surfaces. Factory specifications allowed for a fraction of slack, just 3/8 of an inch, but in a life or death dogfight, that was fatal. At high speeds, it mattered little. But during sharp turns at lower speeds, that tiny delay between stick movement and aircraft response meant the difference between survival and death. McKenna had reported this 2 months prior, but the engineering officer insisted the tension was within tolerance. Adjusting it would void the warranty. Officially, no mechanic had the authority to modify flight controls. McKenna acted. He took a 6-inch piece of piano wire from a damaged aircraft, bent it into a Z shape, and installed it as a tensioner on Hayes' left aileron control cable. The modification took 8 minutes. It added mere ounces of tensions, but it eliminated the slack. Nobody noticed. The inspection crew focused on engines and ammunition, oblivious to the critical adjustment under the wing. McKenna said nothing and watched Hayes taxi, take off, and disappear toward the enemy. What happened next would redefine the way every P-38 in the Pacific flew. The problem had already claimed Lieutenant David Chen, lost on July 9th, 1943. McKenna had known Chen well, checked his aircraft every morning. Chen had survived a close call with a Zero, returning with bullet holes in his left boom and a story of near death during a turn. Yet 3 weeks later, Chen died in a separate engagement over Rabaul. Caught again in a fight, the P-38 could not win. McKenna never saw him again. Captain William Morrison followed, experienced with 11 confirmed kills. On August 3rd, 1943, Morrison led a flight of P-38s at 12,000 feet over Oro Bay. He scored 1-0, then found himself countered by 2 others. The controls felt sluggish, mushy, fighting him as he attempted evasive maneuvers. Morrison's aircraft succumbed, leaving his wingman to report the loss. Engine settings, control surfaces, cable tension, all within spec. Officially, pilot error. McKenna knew better. By mid-August, 17 pilots had perished under circumstances that pointed to the same flaw. The slack in the aileron cables was subtle but deadly. Each morning, McKenna smelled fuel, metal, and oil, watched pilots climb into machines that could betray them in the sky, and returned to maintainers' logs knowing the truth. The delay in response was killing men. On the evening of August 16th, Hayes approached McKenna in the maintenance hangar. He asked simply, desperately, if anything could be done to make the aircraft roll faster. Regulations be damned. McKenna worked through the humid night, the smell of oil and metal thick in the air, sweat running down his back, hands greasy and bloodied from the effort. The 6-inch piece of piano wire was bent, adjusted, and installed as an inline tensioner. The slack vanished. The P-38 now responded instantly. At 7:42 a.m. on August 17th, Hayes took off. McKenna watched as the P-38 climbed, joined the formation of 16 aircraft, and headed toward the Huan Gulf. 17 minutes later, Hayes engaged 18 Zeros at 13,000 feet. So first attack was textbook. Diving from altitude, sun behind, building speed. But now, as the Zero attempted its evasive roll, Hayes' aircraft followed precisely. No lag, no delay. Tracers streaked out, hitting their mark. The Zero exploded, rolling inverted, smoking, destroyed. Hayes' first kill. But the fight was far from over. 3 more Zeros dove, seeking revenge. Hayes pushed the throttles forward, climbed, rolled, and fired again. One by one, each Zero fell to his guns. Within 7 minutes, Hayes had achieved 4 kills. His flight returned, shaken but victorious. The performance was unprecedented. His P-38 rolled, snapped, and turned with a precision that stunned all who witnessed it, including Captain Frank Mitchell at 15,000 feet. Mitchell sought out McKenna and demanded the secret. McKenna revealed the piano wire tensioner. The modification, illegal and unsanctioned, spread quickly through the squadron. By August 20th, 9 aircraft carried the tensioners. Pilots reported vastly improved handling. The kill ratios shifted dramatically. American pilots, once prey, were now hunters. By September, 40 aircraft had the modification. Japanese intelligence noticed a change. Zeros that had dominated turning fights now struggled to counter the modified P-38s. Lieutenant Commander Saburo Sakai, an ace with 64 kills, barely avoided collision as a P-38 reversed unexpectedly in his maneuver. Reports flooded the Japanese high command. American fighters were maneuvering faster, more aggressively. The tactics they had relied on for years were failing. The modification was subtle, hidden inside the aircraft, undetectable without disassembly. It was not a new engine or weapon, just a small piece of piano wire. Yet it transformed combat. The Japanese lost 38 fighters to P-38s in September alone, with American losses at 22. For the first time in the Pacific Theater, the P-38s were dominant. Japanese pilots were ordered to avoid engagement unless heavily outnumbering the Americans. The hunter had become the hunted. The Army Air Force Engineering Command discovered the modification in October 1943. Maintenance inspectors noted discrepancies in cable tension, the report travelled the chain of command, debating whether to punish the mechanics or approve the modification. By November, Lockheed dispatched engineers to New Guinea. They measured, tested, and concluded the modification was safe and effective. It should have been standard from the start. McKenna received no official recognition. Hayes survived the war, flying 63 combat missions with 11 confirmed kills. He returned to Iowa, married, and worked as a crop duster for 37 years. Mitchell survived, rose to squadron commander, and credited McKenna's ingenuity in every briefing. McKenna returned to civilian life, running a garage, never seeking acknowledgement. Years later, in 1991, a historian uncovered maintenance logs documenting the piano wire modification. McKenna, now 73, confirmed the story. Estimates suggested the tensioner saved 80 to 100 lives. He recalled the pilots who returned, their gratitude, and the lives spared by a simple act of ingenuity. McKenna passed in 2006 at age 88, leaving behind no medals for his wartime heroics, only the lives he had saved and the legacy of a mechanic who refused to let procedure outweigh survival. The story of McKenna and Hayes was not one of official accolades, but of quiet heroism. Innovation, he demonstrated, often came from those on the ground, those who saw problems firsthand, and those who acted without waiting for permission. The P-38. Lightning, a plane that had once been deadly to its own pilots, became an instrument of victory through courage, skill, and a single piece of bent piano wire. The memory of those missions, the smell of fuel and oil, the tension in the air, the whine of engines, and the roar of cannons remained alive in the hearts of those who witnessed it. Each maneuver, each kill, each life saved spoke to the profound impact of observation, initiative, and ingenuity. McKenna's story is a reminder that in war, the smallest changes can shift the tides, that true heroes often operate in silence, and that the consequences of their decisions echo long after the battles are over.